The last memory Daniel had of that ordinary sunlit Saturday was his son's laughter floating across the backyard. 6-year-old Ethan had a squeaky giggle that could make even the grumpiest neighbor smile. He was sitting in the sandbox, trucks crashing and dirt flying, while Daniel struggled to repair the ancient garden hose that always burst at the worst times. His wife, Mara, had just stepped inside to get lemonade. It was supposed to be a perfect afternoon, but perfection shattered in a blink. When Mara returned, 2 glasses in hand, Ethan was gone. At first it felt like a harmless game. Daniel chuckled and called his son's name, expecting him to pop out from behind the shed or the tree swing. But after minutes stretched longer than they should have, unease curled in Daniel's gut. The neighbors joined the search. Police came swiftly. By nightfall, floodlights pierced the darkness, and search dogs sniffed through yards and fields. Flyers with Ethan's freckled face appeared everywhere. Local news anchors repeated his name until it felt like the entire state was looking for the boy who had simply disappeared. No witnesses, no ransom notes, no evidence of struggle, just a vanishing. As weeks bled into months, the hopeful candlelight vigils turned to grim acceptance. Whispers spread like poison. Some neighbors suspected a stranger lurking near the park that summer. Others looked closer to home. Daniel remembered feeling their eyes on him at the grocery store, at the gas station. As if losing his son wasn't enough, he had to carry the weight of suspicion too. The fracture lines reached his marriage. Mara tried to hold on, to stay strong, but grief consumed them both in different ways. She sought therapy, groups, faith. Daniel sought answers. He chased leads, questioned people the police had long dismissed, and eventually lost his job when he refused to stop obsessing. By the 3rd year, Mara left. She took only her clothes and Ethan's favorite stuffed bear. "I can't live in this graveyard anymore," she said through tears. Daniel didn't argue. He just stood at the front door and watched her car shrink into the distance. But he stayed. He had to stay. If Ethan ever found his way back, Daniel wanted to be right where he'd left him. The world moved on. The neighbors grew older. Families moved in and out. Seasons blurred together. But Daniel remained like a stubborn shadow, tending the same flower beds, fixing the same old fence, and mowing the lawn every Saturday just like he had when Ethan was small. Only one thing on the street never changed: the Wilcox family's dog kennel. The Wilcoxes had lived next door forever. Mr. Wilcox was a quiet, rigid man. His wife, Eileen, had passed away shortly after Ethan vanished. Their Rottweiler, Brutus, had been the largest dog Daniel had ever seen. The police had searched the property back then, claimed they found nothing suspicious. Still, Daniel couldn't help noticing how Mr. Wilcox kept to himself even more after the tragedy. The dog died a few years later, but the kennel remained, a large wooden structure that sat like a forgotten relic. 12 years later, most people would have stopped looking. Daniel never did. It was early autumn when everything changed. The sun was low, casting long shadows, and Daniel was fixing a broken fence post between his yard and the Wilcoxes. 6 months earlier, Mr. Wilcox had died quietly in his sleep. His only living relatives were distant cousins in another state, and the house had sat empty ever since. Overgrown weeds crept up the walls, and the once proud lawn had withered. As Daniel hammered a new slat into place, he glanced toward the kennel. Something caught his eye. The dirt beneath the kennel floor looked disturbed, not by animals or weather, but as if someone had recently dug there. The rest of the ground was packed hard from years of neglect, but this patch looked soft, fresh. A normal person would have dismissed it, chalked it up to raccoons or the shifting earth. But Daniel's gut, the same gut that never stopped searching for his son, screamed otherwise. Dropping his tools, he climbed the fence. Up close, the disturbed dirt was unmistakable. The boards covering the kennel floor were old and rotting. Daniel pried at them with bare hands, splinters digging into his skin until the wood cracked apart. Beneath, the loose soil gave way quickly. His spade struck something solid. Metal. Daniel's breath caught. Clearing more dirt, he uncovered a rusted metal hatch, no larger than a manhole cover. It had a handle bolted shut. His heart pounded so hard it hurt. What the hell was a hatch doing under a dog kennel? Hands trembling, Daniel fetched a crowbar and wedged it beneath the rusted bolts. They groaned and snapped under the pressure. The hatch lifted with a gasp of musty air, cold, damp, and reeking of mildew. A narrow shaft led downward. An old ladder clung to the side. Logic told Daniel to call the police, to wait. But logic had no place here, not after 12 years. He lowered himself into the darkness. The air was damp and cool, brushing against his skin like a ghost's breath. His phone's flashlight flickered across the walls, crude concrete, stained and cracked. He climbed down carefully, the ladder groaning under his weight. At the bottom, a small chamber unfolded before him. The floor was packed dirt. A bare bulb hung overhead, its filament faintly glowing. Someone had been here recently. Daniel's light swept across the room. A cot with a thin, filthy mattress. Empty food cans scattered on the ground, and on the far wall, children's drawings. Dozens of them faded but recognizable. Stick figures in bright colors, crayons scrawling sons and houses, and heartbreakingly, a family of 3. A mother, a father, and a little boy with a red cap. Daniel knew that cap. Ethan wore it the day he vanished. A sound made him spin. From the shadows a figure emerged, a young man gaunt and pale with shaggy hair and hollow eyes that shrank from the light. Daniel's breath froze in his chest. Who are you?" he managed to whisper. The young man stared. His lips moved slowly, as if speaking hurt. "Dad?" Daniel felt the world tilt beneath him. The room swam, blood roared in his ears. "Ethan!" The boy, no, the man, nodded weakly. Tears blurred Daniel's vision. He stumbled forward, but Ethan recoiled, pressing into the corner like a frightened animal. "It's okay," Daniel choked. "It's me, it's Dad, I'm here." But as he reached out, his hand brushed something cold. Chains, shackles bolted to the wall. And Ethan flinched, not just from fear, but as if years of punishment had conditioned him to expect pain. Daniel's horror deepened. This was no accidental hiding place. This was a cage, and somewhere in the cold silence above, someone had built it, someone who had watched his son every day, for 12 years. Daniel's hands trembled as he reached for the rusty chain bolted to the wall. His fingers scraped against the metal links as he tried to pry them open. The lock was old but sturdy. Whoever had built this prison had meant for it to last. Ethan shrank back, his thin arms covering his head, expecting a blow that never came. "Ethan," Daniel whispered, voice breaking, "I'm not going to hurt you. You're safe now. I'm getting you out." The young man, his son, peeked through his fingers. Eyes sunken, cheeks hollow. His face was pale from years without sunlight, but the shape of his jaw, the curve of his brow, it was him. Ethan. Even with the shadows of torment etched into every line of his face, Daniel could see his little boy behind those frightened eyes. "I'll get help," Daniel said. "We'll get you out. You'll never have to see this place again." "No." Ethan's voice rasped like sandpaper. "No police, no doctors." Daniel froze. "Why?" "Ethan, they can help. They'll send me back," Ethan hissed, pressing himself against the wall. "If they find me, he'll send me back. Please." Daniel's breath caught in his throat. "He'll send me back." "Who?" Daniel asked, carefully. "Who did this to you?" But Ethan just shook his head violently, tears cutting clean paths through the dirt on his face. "No, no, don't make him mad." Daniel's stomach churned. The smell of mildew and rust made him dizzy. He had to get his son out now. He shoved his phone into his pocket and yanked at the chain again. It wouldn't budge. "I'll be right back," he promised, even though every instinct screamed not to leave Ethan's side. "I need tools. Just wait. I'll come back for—" Yet Ethan grabbed his arm, panic surging in his eyes. "Don't go, please." "I have to. I won't be gone long." Daniel climbed the ladder, each rung creaking under his weight. As he pushed the hatch open, daylight hit him like a slap. He scrambled into the Wilcox yard and sprinted to his garage, heart hammering against his ribs. He grabbed bolt cutters, a crowbar and a flashlight before racing back. As he crossed the fence, he paused. A movement across the street. The curtains in the old Bennett house shifted. Someone had been watching. Daniel swallowed hard and turned back to the kennel. Time was wasting. He slid down the ladder again, tools clanking at his side. "Ethan," he called softly, "I'm here, it's okay." Ethan hadn't moved. His eyes stayed glued to the ladder, waiting to see if his father would return. When Daniel reappeared, the young man sagged in relief. Daniel dropped to his knees and positioned the bolt cutters around the chain. The metal groaned as he squeezed, once, twice. On the third attempt, the chain snapped with a sharp crack. Ethan flinched as if the sound itself was dangerous. "You're free," Daniel whispered, voice thick with emotion. But Ethan didn't move. I can't," he whispered. "I'm not supposed to. He said the cage keeps me safe if I leave." Daniel grabbed his shoulders. "You are safe. He's gone. Mr. Wilcox is dead. No one can hurt you now." At the mention of the name, Ethan went rigid. "No, not him. His..." Voice lowered to a shuddering breath. "The man in the red truck. He came at night after Brutus died. He said if I left, he'd take you and Mom too." Daniel's mind reeled. The man in the red truck, not Wilcox, someone else. Someone who used Wilcox's property to hide his crime. Who had controlled Ethan with threats so cruel they still held power after a decade? "Who is he?" Daniel asked urgently. "What's his name?" But Ethan shook his head wildly. "I don't know. Please, Dad, can we just go before he comes back?" Daniel didn't argue. He wrapped his arms around his son, the first embrace in 12 long years. Ethan trembled like a leaf against him, too frail, too thin. "We're going home." Daniel helped Ethan up the ladder, moving slowly, supporting his weak limbs. They emerged into the cool autumn air. For a moment, the world seemed shockingly bright and normal. Birds chirped, leaves rustled. A breeze carried the scent of wood smoke from a nearby chimney. But something wasn't right. Across the street, the curtains in the Bennett house moved again. This time Daniel saw a shadow, a tall figure stepping back into the darkness. "Someone's watching us." "Inside," Daniel whispered. "Come on." They hurried back into Daniel's house, locking the door behind them. Daniel lowered the blinds and grabbed his phone to call the police. But as his thumb hovered over the number, Ethan clutched his arm. "Please, Dad, don't call. He'll know. He always knows." Daniel hesitated. His instincts told him to get help, but another part, older, rawer, told him to listen to his son. Ethan had survived 12 years by trusting his fear. Maybe that fear was still keeping him alive. "All right," Daniel said softly. "No police. Not yet." Ethan sank onto the living room couch, eyes scanning every corner like he expected danger to leap out at any moment. "I'll get you something to eat," Daniel said. "You must be starving." But Ethan grabbed his sleeve. "Don't leave me alone, not even for a minute." Daniel nodded, sinking into the couch beside him. He couldn't stop touching Ethan's arm, as if afraid the boy would vanish again if he let go. For a while, they sat together in silence, the weight of 12 stolen years pressing down between them. But Daniel's mind was already racing. The man in the red truck, the Bennett house, the shadow watching them. This wasn't over. Whoever had kept Ethan caged for 12 years wasn't done with them yet. The sky darkened outside the windows, but inside Daniel's living room, time felt frozen. He kept one arm protectively around Ethan's narrow shoulders. His son's skin was cold, despite the warmth of the house, and every sudden noise outside made him flinch like a hunted animal. Daniel's thoughts churned like a storm. He wanted to feed Ethan, clean him up, call the police, the FBI, anyone who could help. But every time he reached for his phone, Ethan's terrified eyes stopped him. "Dad," Ethan whispered suddenly, voice shaking. "We can't stay here. He'll come." Daniel squeezed his arm gently. "Ethan, listen to me. You're safe now. I'm here. He can't hurt you anymore. You don't understand. He always comes back." Ethan's breathing quickened. "He watches everything, even when I was underground. He'd leave me food and water but never show his face, just a voice, and the red truck's engine." "I know that sound." Daniel frowned. "The red truck. You said it wasn't Mr. Wilcox?" "No." Ethan shook his head firmly. "Wilcox never came down there. I think he was scared of the man too. After Brutus died, I stopped hearing Wilcox's voice. only his. Daniel's stomach sank. For 12 years he'd believed Mr. Wilcox was the worst possible suspect. But what if Wilcox had just been a pawn? Or worse, a coward who allowed another man to use his property for something unspeakable? A sudden knock at the door shattered his thoughts. 3 sharp raps. Daniel froze. Ethan's whole body went rigid beside him. "Don't answer," Ethan hissed. Daniel motioned for silence. He crept toward the window and peeked through a sliver in the blinds. A man stood at the doorstep, tall, broad-shouldered. He wore a baseball cap pulled low and a brown jacket stained with grease. His face was shadowed, but in the fading light, Daniel could see the shape of a heavy beard. Behind him, parked at the curb, was a faded red pickup truck. Daniel's blood ran ice-cold. The man knocked again, harder this time. "Mr. Holt?" The voice was deep, gravelly. "Need a minute of your time." Daniel ducked away from the window, breath shallow. Ethan had already slid off the couch and crouched behind it, trembling like a leaf. "That's him," Ethan mouthed. Daniel nodded silently. His mind raced. He grabbed his phone and typed out a text to the only person he trusted anymore. Detective Claire Monroe. She'd led the original investigation into Ethan's disappearance before being pushed off the case by her superiors. She'd always told Daniel she believed there was more to the story, that she'd never stopped believing Ethan was alive. "Claire, it's Daniel. Ethan's alive. He's here. Red truck man at my door. Help." His thumb hovered over the send button, but just as he pressed it, the knocking stopped. The man had stepped off the porch and was heading back toward his truck. Daniel watched him through the gap in the blinds. The stranger paused at the driver's door, looking up and down the street like he owned it. Then, slowly, he smiled. Not a friendly smile, not even a fake one, a promise. The man climbed into his truck and drove away. The engine's growl faded down the road, but the tension in the room remained suffocating. Daniel locked the door, bolted it, then checked every window. "He knows where we are, Ethan. We need to leave." "No police," Ethan whispered again, tears brimming in his eyes. "Not the police," Daniel said, shaking his head. "A friend? Someone who believed in you when no one else did? She won't let him take you again." Ethan hesitated, but finally nodded. Daniel hit send. Within 5 minutes, Claire Monroe replied, "On my way. Stay inside. Don't answer the door." Daniel exhaled shakily and sat back down beside Ethan. The boy sagged against him, exhausted beyond words. "Dad?" Ethan murmured. "Yes? If he tries to take me again, promise you won't let him, even if he hurts you." Daniel's heart broke all over again. "I swear, Ethan, I'll protect you with my life." Ethan closed his eyes, but his body stayed tense, as if he didn't believe safety was even possible anymore. Half an hour later, headlights swept across the living room walls. Daniel jumped up, but when he checked, relief surged through him. Detective Claire Monroe stood at the curb, stepping out of her unmarked SUV. She looked older than Daniel remembered, more lines around her eyes, but the same determined fire burned in her expression. She wore plain clothes and carried a sidearm at her hip. Daniel opened the door cautiously. "Claire." Her eyes softened. "Daniel." She glanced past him and her breath caught. "Ethan." For a moment, time seemed to rewind. Claire had spent months interviewing Mara and Daniel, walking through the backyard, pressing higher-ups to keep the case open. Seeing Ethan alive, now, it hit her like a tidal wave. She stepped inside quickly and shut the door. "Ethan," she said softly, "I'm so sorry for everything you've been through. You don't have to be afraid anymore." Ethan said nothing, eyes downcast. "We have to move fast," Claire continued, lowering her voice. "That man, whoever he is, knows you found your son. If he's bold enough to come to the door, he's desperate. He might try something tonight." Daniel nodded grimly. "What do we do?" "I have a safe house 2 towns over. Quiet. Private? I can get you both there until we sort this out." Ethan tensed. "No hospitals, no police stations. He watches those." "Agreed," Claire said. "We'll keep it off the books." Daniel grabbed a duffel bag and stuffed essentials. "Inside." As he helped Ethan into a clean hoodie and jeans, the boy leaned closer. "Dad," he whispered, "there's something I didn't tell you." Daniel paused. "What is it?" Ethan's lips trembled. "I wasn't alone down there. Not at first." Daniel's blood ran cold. "What do you mean?" "There was another boy, years ago, before me. I think his name was Corey. He tried to escape." "What happened to him?" Claire asked gently. Ethan's eyes filled with tears. "He never came back." Daniel clenched his fists. The nightmare was deeper than he'd imagined. And now the man who had stolen Ethan's childhood and possibly Corey's life was still out there, watching, waiting. And he wouldn't stop until he got Ethan back. Daniel kept one hand on Ethan's shoulder as they packed hurriedly. Every creak of the house made his pulse jump. Claire stood near the door, keeping her eyes on the dark street outside, her hand resting casually near her holstered weapon. Ethan moved slowly, his body frail from years of captivity. He flinched every time the zipper on the duffel bag rasped or a floorboard groaned underfoot. The years underground had taught him to fear noise, fear discovery, fear almost everything. Daniel wanted to shield him from it all, but right now they needed to move. Claire's SUV was parked at the curb with the engine off and the lights dimmed. "When we go out there, we do it quickly," she said. "We'll take the back door. Stay low and get in the vehicle fast. Don't look back." Ethan nodded, though his face was pale as paper. Claire opened the back door slowly, peering into the night. The street was quiet. No headlights, no footsteps. Just the low hum of crickets and a faint breeze rustling the trees. "Go," she whispered. Daniel grabbed the duffel bag with one hand, Ethan's cold fingers with the other, and they slipped into the backyard. They crouched low, moving fast. The short distance to the SUV felt like crossing an entire battlefield. As they reached the vehicle, Daniel opened the rear door and helped Ethan inside. Claire slid into the driver's seat, started the engine, and pulled away from the curb smoothly. No screeching tires, no dramatic escape, just calm, quiet motion. But as they turned the corner onto Maple Street, Ethan stiffened. Daniel followed his gaze. Half a block away, hidden beneath a street lamp's weak glow, sat the red pickup truck. Its engine wasn't running. No lights on. Just a silent, watching sentinel in the night. The man was still there. Claire kept driving, eyes narrowing. "He's following at a distance." "That's fine. Let him. He'll think he's leading us into a trap." Daniel clenched his jaw. "And what's really happening? We're leading him into one." The safe house was an old hunting cabin Claire's family had owned for decades. Nestled deep in the woods, it sat 5 miles from the nearest paved road. Overgrown brush disguised the driveway, and Claire shut the headlights off before turning onto the gravel path. As they approached the cabin, Daniel glanced back down the winding trail. No headlights, no engine growl. The red truck hadn't followed. "We might have shaken him," Daniel said. But even as the words left his mouth, he didn't believe them. Predators didn't lose their prey so easily. Claire parked beside the cabin. She helped Daniel get Ethan inside, locking the heavy oak door behind them. The cabin was sparse but comfortable. A fireplace, 2 small bedrooms, and a kitchen stocked with non-perishable supplies. "This place isn't in any database," Claire said. "We'll be safe here for now. I'll stay awake tonight, just in case." Ethan sank into an armchair near the fire, hugging his knees to his chest. Daniel knelt beside him. "I know you're scared," Daniel said gently, "but he can't reach you here." Ethan shook his head. "That's what Corey thought too before he disappeared." Claire crouched down. "Tell me everything you remember about this Corey." Ethan stared into the fire, eyes distant. "He was older than me. Maybe 10 when I first saw him. Skinny. Dark hair. He told me he'd been in the cage for almost a year when I arrived. He taught me how to survive, how to stay quiet, how to listen for the man's footsteps." Daniel's chest tightened. What happened to him? One night he tried to break the chain while the man was gone. He worked at it for hours with a piece of scrap metal he'd hidden. I helped him. Ethan's voice cracked. "When?" "The man came back and found the chain broken. He took Corey away. I never saw him again." Claire's face hardened. "We need to find out who Corey was. If his family filed a missing person report, it might give us a lead. Daniel nodded. But Ethan grabbed his sleeve. Please don't let them put me back in the system. I can't go to a hospital or foster care, that's what he wants. That's where he'll find me. Claire's eyes softened. No one's putting you back anywhere. You stay with your father, I'll make sure of it. Just as she finished speaking, the sound of tires crunching gravel sliced through the quiet. Daniel jumped up, heart racing. Claire drew her pistol and motioned for them to stay down. She moved to the window and peeked through the curtain. Daniel followed and looked out. At the far end of the driveway, partially hidden in the trees, sat the red truck. Its headlights were off, but they both knew he was watching. Claire whispered, "He followed us after all. Waited until we were settled in." "Do we call for backup?" Daniel asked. She shook her head. "No. If he knows anyone's coming, he'll vanish. We need him to get close." "Close?" Daniel frowned. Claire looked back at Ethan. "It's time to stop running." Daniel's breath caught. "What are you saying?" "I'm saying," Claire said quietly, "we lure him in. Tonight. We end this." Ethan's eyes went wide with fear. But Daniel felt something else rising in his chest. Not fear. Not anymore. Rage. 12 years stolen. A boy turned into a prisoner. A family destroyed. Tonight, the hunter would become the hunted. Daniel could feel his heartbeat in his throat. Every breath was heavy, like the weight of 12. Years sat on his chest. But beside him, Ethan's breathing was shallow, quick. Terror barely contained beneath his fragile calm. Claire's plan was dangerous, but so was running. "Tell me what to do," Daniel said, voice low. Claire nodded. "We don't confront him outside. Too risky. We bring him inside. You and Ethan stay hidden in the bedroom. I'll handle the rest." Daniel frowned. "Claire, you can't—" She cut him off with a look. "I've waited years for this moment too. I won't let him take." "Ethan again." Ethan grabbed Daniel's hand, his skin cold and clammy. "Dad, I'm scared." Daniel knelt in front of him. "I won't let anything happen to you. Not now, not ever again." They moved fast. Daniel helped Ethan into the smaller bedroom at the back of the cabin. It had a solid door and only one small window facing the woods. Claire took a chair and wedged it under the doorknob from the inside to keep it sealed. "Stay here. No matter what you hear, don't come out," she said. Ethan hesitated. What if he hurts you?" Claire gave a small, sad smile. "He won't. He's not hunting me. He's hunting you, and that's his mistake." Daniel gave Ethan a final hug, then followed Claire out. He left the bedroom door cracked just enough to hear what was happening. He needed to know. He needed to be ready. They killed the lights inside the cabin and waited. Minutes passed, then an hour. Silence stretched, long and suffocating. Even the forest seemed to hold its breath. Then, the faint sound of footsteps outside, gravel shifting, wood creaking under pressure. Daniel's muscles tensed. Claire crouched, by the front door, gun in hand, every line of her body taut with focus. A soft knock, just like at Daniel's house. 3 sharp raps. Claire didn't answer. A voice followed, calm, confident. "I know you've got him. The boy. Ethan. You think you can hide from me?" Daniel's blood went cold. The voice was the same one he'd heard at his door. Deep, rough but controlled. A predator's voice. "You're making a mistake," the man continued. "That boy's mine. You can't keep him. He'll come back. He always comes back." Claire motioned for Daniel to stay silent. More footsteps circled the cabin. Then, to Daniel's horror, the bedroom window rattled. "He's testing the windows." Claire moved like a shadow, repositioning herself toward the hallway. Daniel followed her, heart pounding. Then, the sound of a window sliding open. The man was inside. Claire's breath steadied. She raised her pistol, eyes locked on the bedroom hallway. A figure stepped into the dim light filtering from the fireplace. He was taller than Daniel expected. Broad. His face was lined with age, but hard as stone. His beard was gray and unkempt, and he wore a hunting knife on his belt. He didn't look surprised to see Claire's gun. "You think that'll stop me?" he sneered. "Don't take another step," Claire said firmly. But the man kept advancing. Slowly. I'm not here for you, lady. I want what's mine. Daniel couldn't stay silent. Rage swelled in his chest. He's not yours. He's my son. You stole him. The man glanced at Daniel, then chuckled softly. Didn't steal him. Saved him. From a useless life. You think you could have raised him right? Kept him safe? No. He's alive because of me. Because of the cage. Daniel surged forward, but Claire stopped him with a hand. You kept him like an animal, Daniel spat. You murdered another boy, Corey. The man's eyes darkened. That brat never listened. I warned him, told him what would happen. If he tried to run. Claire's hand tightened on her pistol. Where is Corey's body? The man shrugged. You're not getting any more answers. You're wasting time. Bring me the boy now, and maybe you both live through the night. Claire shook her head. That's not going to happen. The man's smile faded. His hand dropped toward the knife on his belt. Claire fired. The shot echoed like thunder in the small cabin. The bullet struck the man's shoulder, spinning him back against the wall. He roared in pain, but somehow kept his feet. Daniel's mind flashed to Ethan, still hiding in the back room. Don't. Let him get past us. The man lunged, knife gleaming. Claire fired again. This time the bullet hit his thigh. The man collapsed to his knees, blood blooming across his jacket. You should have killed me when you had the chance, he growled. Claire didn't lower her weapon. That's for the courts now. The man's lips twisted into a bloody grin. You think bars can hold me? I'll find him again. I'll always find him. Daniel couldn't listen anymore. He crossed the room in 2 strides and punched the man hard across the jaw. His knuckles cracked and the man slumped unconscious. Silence. Heavy. Final. Claire exhaled and lowered her gun. Call the state police. Now. Daniel nodded, grabbing his phone with shaking hands. In the bedroom, the door creaked open. Ethan stood there, pale and trembling. It's over, he whispered. Daniel's throat tightened. He nodded slowly. It's over. Ethan's eyes filled with tears. For the first time since Daniel had found him, those tears weren't from fear. They were from release, from the fragile, terrifying hope that he might finally be free. Claire looked at both of them. We'll get Corey's family justice, and we'll make sure this monster never hurts anyone again. Daniel wrapped his arms around Ethan, holding him tight. 12 years lost. But now they had a future. And no one, not even the man in the red truck, would ever steal it again. The sirens echoed through the forest, long before the flashing lights reached the cabin. Claire stood at the door, gun still in hand, while Daniel kept an arm wrapped tightly around Ethan. Neither spoke. The weight of what had just happened pressed down like a physical force. The man who had haunted their lives, who had stolen Ethan's childhood, lay unconscious on the floor, blood seeping into the cabin's old wooden planks. Daniel's phone buzzed. State police are 5 minutes out, he said, his voice hoarse. Claire nodded without looking away from the driveway. They'll have medics, too. He'll live, but he won't be walking anytime soon. Ethan didn't speak. His eyes were locked on the man's slumped body. A storm of fear, hatred, and disbelief churned in his expression. He can't take you again, Daniel whispered into his son's hair. I promise, Ethan. No more cages, no more fear. But he said he'd always find me, Ethan murmured. His voice was so soft it was almost a thought rather than speech. He won't, Claire said, her tone ironclad. We have him now, and we'll find out everything. His name, his past, how many kids he's taken. This ends here. Headlights flickered through the trees. Police vehicles, 2 black and whites and an unmarked SUV pulled up the gravel path. Uniformed officers emerged, weapons drawn. A paramedic team followed closely behind. Claire stepped out first, badge raised. Detective. Monroe, suspect is down, gunshot wounds to the shoulder and thigh. He attempted to abduct a minor and confessed to at least 1 prior child abduction and murder. The lead officer, a grizzled sergeant, took a quick look at the scene, then barked orders. Within seconds, the cabin was swarming with law enforcement. Daniel kept Ethan close as 2 paramedics approached. We need to check him out, one said gently. Ethan shrank back, panic in his eyes. Daniel shook his head. He's not going anywhere without me." The paramedics nodded in understanding. They led Ethan to the couch and began examining him. His pulse was weak. He was dehydrated, malnourished, and emotionally traumatized, but the medic gave Daniel a reassuring look. "He's going to be okay. We'll need to get him to a hospital, though." Ethan grabbed Daniel's arm. "No hospitals, please." He said, "That's where they take you. That's where he finds you again." The medic hesitated. Daniel looked to Claire. "I'll stay with him," Claire promised. "No reporters, no strangers. Just us and a private medical team I trust." Ethan slowly nodded, though his whole body still trembled. Officers restrained the man in the red truck and loaded him onto a stretcher. As they carried him past, his eyes flickered open. Despite his injuries, he smiled at Ethan, a slow, mocking grin full of promises. Ethan recoiled in terror. Daniel felt something dark rise inside him. He stepped into the man's path. "Look at me." The man's eyes shifted toward him. "You'll never see my son again," Daniel said in a low, dangerous voice. "If the courts fail, if the prison fails, I won't." The man sneered, but didn't respond. Blood trickled from his mouth as they carried him away. At the hospital, things moved quickly. Claire's connections got them a private room with no public record attached. 2 detectives from the state's Special Victims Unit arrived, but kept their distance at Claire's insistence. Ethan barely slept that first night. Whenever he closed his eyes, he jolted awake with a gasp. Daniel stayed at his bedside, never letting go of his hand. "I'm here," Daniel whispered each time. "I'm not leaving." By the second day, doctors confirmed what Daniel already feared. Ethan had been subjected to prolonged confinement, poor nutrition, and severe psychological trauma. But physically, he would heal. Emotionally, that was another battle. Claire visited often, bringing news. "His name is Richard Fallon. He used at least 6 aliases over the years. We're digging into every missing child report in a 100-mile radius." "Corey?" Ethan asked softly. Claire nodded. "We're looking. We'll find his family." Ethan closed his eyes, tears slipping down his cheeks. "And Fallon?" Daniel asked. "He'll face multiple charges: kidnapping, assault, murder, unlawful imprisonment. The DA is already planning to push for life without parole." Daniel exhaled slowly. For the first time in 12 years, the weight pressing on his soul felt just a little lighter. On the 4th night Mara arrived. Claire had called her quietly without telling Daniel. At first he'd felt a flicker of anger, but when he saw Mara step into the hospital room, her face pale, eyes rimmed red, he knew it had been the right choice. She stopped short when she saw Ethan. "My God." Ethan looked up, uncertain. "Mom?" His voice cracked. She rushed to him, falling to her knees at the side of the bed. She gathered him into her arms, sobbing so hard her whole body shook. "I never stopped loving you," she whispered. "Never. I thought I lost you forever." Ethan held her tightly. Daniel watched, throat thick with emotion. For the first time in 12 years, their family was whole again. But the healing had only just begun. The days that followed were a strange blend of relief and fear, hope and trauma. The media got wind of Ethan's recovery, despite Claire's best efforts to keep things quiet. Reporters swarmed the hospital grounds. Headlines screamed across local and national news. "Boy missing for 12 years, found alive." "Horror beneath." The Kennel. Ethan Holt's incredible survival story. But no headline could capture the nightmare Ethan had endured, or the difficult road ahead. Daniel, Mara, and Ethan stayed hidden in a private ward. Claire personally vetted every nurse, doctor and staff member allowed near them. Her quiet detective was stationed outside the door at all times. Daniel insisted. After all, Fallon's smile had said it all. Even in custody, the man wanted Ethan to live in fear. But Ethan wasn't the boy from the cellar anymore. Bit by bit, he began to open up. On the 5th night, while Mara was sleeping curled in a chair and Daniel sat flipping through a worn paperback, Ethan spoke. "Dad?" Daniel dropped the book instantly. "Yeah?" "I remember more. About Corey and the others." Daniel's chest tightened. You don't have to talk about that now. I want to. Ethan sat up a little, his voice steadier than it had been in days. Fallon, he said Corey wasn't the first. He told me there were 3 before him, 3 kids. He said they were failures. He told me I was different, that I obeyed. Daniel clenched his fists. That monster, he kept pictures of the other boys. Ethan's face paled, hidden in a metal box under the cot. I saw him looking through them sometimes when he thought I was asleep. Daniel stood. Claire needs to know this. We'll search that bunker again. Ethan grabbed his wrist. Dad, when you go back, be careful. Fallon wasn't alone. Daniel froze. What do you mean? Ethan swallowed hard. Sometimes. I heard him talking to someone upstairs. Another man. I never saw him, but his boots, he had heavy boots. He left muddy prints on the ladder. Fallon called him the Collector. He said he only took kids who wouldn't be missed. Daniel felt the blood drain from his face. Fallon had an accomplice, possibly the one who had helped him over the years, maybe even the true mastermind, the Collector. I'll tell Claire right now, Daniel promised. That night, Daniel returned to the cabin with Claire and 2 crime scene investigators. The bunker was sealed off with yellow tape, but Claire had special permission to search it further. They found the metal box exactly where Ethan said it would be. Inside were old, faded photographs, some Polaroids, others printed from cheap inkjet. Printers. All were of children, boys aged between 5 and 12. Some looked defiant, others terrified. On the back of each, a number was scrawled in red ink. 3 photos were marked X, failures. 1 was Corey. The last photo was of Ethan, numbered 4. But next to his number, a word was written in small, precise letters. Perfect. Daniel's stomach twisted. They also found footprints. Claire crouched beside them. Heavy boots, large size, not Fallon's. Ethan was right. She stood and looked at Daniel grimly. We caught Fallon, but the Collector is still out there. Daniel clenched his jaw. Then we catch him, before he takes another child. 2 days later, while Claire coordinated with the FBI, Daniel and Mara sat with Ethan in his hospital room. They watched cartoons, Ethan's choice, something cheerful to drown out the nightmares. Ethan smiled for the first time since his rescue. Not a big smile, not carefree, but real. Daniel felt hope stir in his chest, but then Claire burst into the room, her face pale and tense. We found him, she said breathlessly. Daniel stood. The Collector? Claire nodded. His name is Dennis Rourke. Works maintenance at the County Juvenile Detention Center. Big man, matches the boot prints. We checked his employment records. He worked at 3 group homes and a foster care agency in the last 20 years. Daniel's gut tightened. He's been around vulnerable kids for decades. And he's missing. Claire's eyes were dark. He didn't show up to work this morning. We traced his vehicle to a warehouse outside town. Daniel grabbed his jacket. Let's go. Claire raised a hand. No, you stay with Ethan. If Rourke knows Fallon's been caught, he might try to finish what Fallon started. Daniel's eyes burned with rage. Then bring him down, Claire. End this. I will. At the abandoned warehouse, Claire and a team of SWAT officers closed in. They found Rourke's vehicle, found signs he had camped there for days. But the man himself, gone. However, inside a rusted filing cabinet, they found more horror. Files, names, photos, notes about dozens of children, some missing, some who had supposedly aged out of the foster system, and a page marked in red. Reclaim Ethan Holt, last perfect subject. Rourke was planning to take Ethan back, and worse, he had a list of new targets. Claire called Daniel immediately. We stopped Fallon, she said, but this is bigger than we thought. Rourke built an entire network. He's been feeding kids to predators for years. Daniel's skin crawled. Then we destroy that network. We will, Claire promised. But for now, keep Ethan close. Don't let him out of your sight. Daniel looked at his son, who had fallen asleep against Mara's side, exhausted but finally at peace for the moment. No one will take him again, Daniel whispered. Not while Daniel Holt still drew breath. Daniel barely slept that night. He sat in the chair beside Ethan's hospital bed. Mara dozing in the corner, while his mind spun with rage and terror. Fallon was behind bars, but Rourke, the so-called collector, was still out there. Still hunting. And he wasn't just after Ethan anymore. Claire had said Rourke built a network, a business she'd called it. Children taken from broken homes, group homes, runaways, kids no one would miss quickly. Fallon had been just a piece of it. Now the last perfect subject had escaped, and Rourke would do anything to reclaim his prize. Daniel wouldn't let that happen. When the first light of dawn crept through the window blinds, Daniel was already up, pacing. Claire arrived, before sunrise, flanked by 2 FBI agents. "They've locked down every hospital entrance," Claire said. "Security is tight. No one gets in or out without going through us." Daniel gave a stiff nod. "Good. What's the next step?" Claire exchanged a look with the agents. "We want to move Ethan to a federal safe house, not just for his protection, but because he's the key witness in what we're now calling a trafficking ring investigation." Daniel's stomach knotted. "We move him now." But Ethan, newly awake, had other ideas. "I don't want to run anymore." His voice was quiet but firm. "We keep running, he wins. I want to help stop him." Daniel and Mara both tried to protest, but Claire held up a hand. "He's right. Ethan can help us bait Rourke, safely, on our terms." Daniel shook his head, horrified. "No, absolutely not. He's a child." "I'm not a child anymore, Dad." Ethan's eyes were old beyond his years. "He stole that from me." Daniel closed his eyes, pain slicing through his chest. But when he looked at Claire, he saw agreement in her face. "This ends now," Claire said. The plan moved quickly. That night, with FBI techs working behind the scenes, they crafted a fake news leak online. A fabricated report claiming Ethan Holt would be transferred to a foster home for his protection. A remote, unsecured location. It was bait. The real transfer took place under heavy security to a second, heavily fortified safe house near the FBI field office. Daniel, Mara, and Claire were by Ethan's side every step of the way, but they didn't have to wait long. Within hours of the news breaking, surveillance flagged an abandoned black SUV circling the supposed foster location. Agents spotted a large man fitting Rourke's description nearby, speaking to someone over a burner phone. Claire's voice was tight over the radio. "We've got him." Daniel stood beside her, watching through the monitors, his fists clenched, at his sides. "He's not just watching," Claire continued. "He's planning an abduction. Tonight." SWAT officers closed in, moving with surgical precision. Drones tracked Rourke as he crept toward the decoy house, a duffel bag in hand. Likely tools for kidnapping. Daniel and Claire stood by at the command center. Claire spoke quietly into her radio. "Do not engage until he attempts entry. We want him caught red-handed." Through the drone feed, Daniel saw the man pause at the side door, testing the lock. Then he crouched, pulling tools from his bag. His bulky figure moved quickly, like someone who had done this countless times. "He's in," an agent confirmed. SWAT teams burst from every direction. Flashbangs lit up the night. The man tried to run, but a K-9 unit tackled him to the ground. Before he made it 10 feet. "Dennis Rourke," Claire's voice rang through the radio. "You are under arrest for conspiracy, kidnapping, trafficking, and murder." Daniel sagged into his chair, tears stinging his eyes. It's over. In the days that followed, the full extent of the network unfolded. Fallon and Rourke had been working together for over 15 years, using foster care, juvenile detention, and group homes to scout vulnerable children. There were other names, other accomplices. One by one, the FBI swept them up. The photo box from the bunker helped identify 4 other victims, including Corey. His family was located. They'd mourned him for years, but now they finally had answers, and a measure of justice. Ethan provided critical testimony. His courage helped prosecutors build a case so airtight it left no room for doubt. Fallon and Rourke would never see freedom again. But justice wasn't the same as healing. 6 months later, Daniel watched. Ethan play in the backyard of their new home, a quiet place far from Brooksville, a place with no dark memories. Ethan wasn't the same boy he'd once been. He never would be. But therapy, time, and love were helping. Mara had moved back in. Not as Daniel's wife, at least not yet, but as family, as two parents united for their son. Claire visited often. She'd been promoted to lead investigator on trafficking cases, using the experience of Ethan's rescue to save others. One afternoon, as Daniel grilled burgers on the patio, Ethan came up behind him. "Dad," Daniel smiled. "Yeah?" "I don't think I'll ever stop being scared completely." Daniel set down the spatula and turned, kneeling so he was eye level with his son. "You don't have to. Being scared means you know what to look out for, but you also know you survived." Ethan smiled, small but real. "I'm proud of you," Daniel added, "every single day." "Me too," Mara said, joining them. As the sun dipped below the horizon, they ate together, not just as a family, but as survivors. Fallon and Rourke's shadows would never disappear completely, but they no longer ruled their lives. Ethan had taken back his freedom, and with it, their family's future.